How was your day, Chad?
It was, I was going to say, it was not as bad as having a statistics exam.
Okay, so we are live, and I am Tara from 180 Shift, and today we have a special interview with my co-host Ellie and Sheriff Chad Bianco, so we are super happy to jump in right to that, and here's the intro. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you want to find any of our social medias, just go to 180shift.org. And today, Ellie, what do we have going on today?
We have an amazing interview, just like as you said in the beginning. I think that, lately there's been a lot of different, candidates starting to announce, especially for the midterms that are coming up next year, which I think a lot of people neglect, though. A lot of people neglect the midterms and just focus on big elections where a president comes in. But you know what? Midterms are very important.
Yes, they are.
So we have a candidate with us today.
And we will be discussing more of that after our Boba.
Oh, that's right. Our Boba.
That's right. Chad Bianco, do you like Boba?
I will tell you that at one time I did like boba, but I might scare you how I eat now.
Oh, no.
What do you mean? Like, is it just all vegetables?
It's all meat.
Oh, that's pretty good for your health.
I'm a carnivore. I've been carnivore for 2 years.
That's amazing. I know that, who was it? Jordan Peterson, his family did that as well.
Yes, that's why we did it.
Oh, really? Yeah. No,
Jordan was good, but it was Michaela the reason why we did it. My wife found videos from Michaela, and my wife suffered from nothing as bad as Michaela, but some autoimmune issues, and so we decided to try it, and man, it was life-changing.
Yeah, it definitely, I've heard a lot of the health reasons for why doing that, and I have seen those videos, so yeah, that's actually props to you. That takes a lot to do. I know that having to do just a carnivore diet has to be a lot.
That's a good testimony in the favor of that, though, you gotta say.
Yeah.
So.
It certainly is. I'm definitely a fan, and I try and convince anyone I can. But with that said, I definitely loved Boba. We had our favorite place of going here, and we went all the time. Took the kids there when they were young. It was good.
That's good. Yeah, I love that. Not a lot of people know about it, so it's okay. But yeah, why don't we start with just telling us about who you are. Give us a quick just overview about who you are, and then we'll ask more specific questions about your backstory in a bit.
Very good. So obviously my name is Chad Bianco. I'm a father of 4. My kids are older now. My oldest is 35. I have a 32, a 31, and a 28. 3 boys. My youngest is a girl. And I have 4 grandkids, 2 girls that are both 4 and 2 boys that are both 1. My wife and I live in Riverside, California. We live in the Woodcrest area of Riverside. We have 2 dogs, 2 horses. I'm actually a transplant to California from Utah. I grew up in Utah.
Wow.
I moved here when I was 21 in search of the California dream. And, I've been very, very blessed. I found my California dream, and I was able to live it. So I've been here since 1989. I started work with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department in 1993. I actually put myself through the academy, which is not normal. But back then, there was budgets were horrible back then. The economy was bad. And if you wanted to be into law enforcement, you had to do it yourself. And then they would pick you later based on how you did in the academy. So I put myself through the academy. I finished at the top of my class. And the day after the academy, I was hired by Riverside. That's the only place I really wanted to work anyway. I already lived here, had a house, wife, and 1 child. And so this is where I wanted to work, and it worked out good for me. So throughout my career, I started in the jail. I worked corrections. We're an extremely large agency. So I started in corrections, then went to patrol. I worked narcotics for a couple of years. That was probably one of my favorite assignments. And then I started promoting. So I worked in internal affairs, which is, just what it says. It's not really a glamorous assignment, but it really, in hindsight, that was probably the turning point in my career that really skyrocketed my success and me moving up was my ability to navigate through that process relatively well. And then promoted through the ranks. And then the office of sheriff is an elected position. And I got to a point in my career where I realized I was running the Hemet station in that's one of our cities here, our county area stations. And I realized that I couldn't really make too awfully many changes from department policy to help our residents. And I didn't think we were doing what we should be doing with county resources, with taxpayer money. And I thought we should be more engaged, more personable, more community oriented, and really trying to identify issues within the community and make them go away rather than targeting just big items. And the only way you can do that is if you're the boss. And fortunately for me, the boss is an elected position. So I ran for office and I was elected in 2018 to take over the sheriff's office. And I've been doing that ever since. I was reelected again in 2022. They're 4-year terms, but this one in particular was made into a 6-year term just because of a law change. And interestingly enough, it had to do with kind of what you were saying about the midterm elections. And how people don't necessarily see them as important as what they are.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They changed the law. The lawmakers in California, it was an underhanded change. They didn't do it for good reasons. They did it for a little bit of nefarious political reasons. But what it did is it changed my term. I was reelected in 2022. Normally, I would be up for election in 2026, but because I'm a constitutional officer, they couldn't shorten my term, so they had to add 2 years to it. So we got 2 years extra. So my next election will be 2028. And what that really did is it opened up this election to even make me running for governor possible, because if I would have had to run for sheriff at the same time, which would have been 2026, I couldn't run for both. Right. And in who I am, I wouldn't give up being the sheriff to run for office, to run for the office of governor. But the way it works now is I can run for governor and still be the sheriff. So it doesn't affect my office unless I win. So once I win, then I'll have to resign from this position, and then there's a procedure that goes into appointing and then electing the new sheriff.
Right. Yeah. And just touching on just real quickly, since you are saying that you can run while being a sheriff, but there was a question that came in about your uniform and being able to wear that while campaigning.
Yeah, that's a good question, because typically for law enforcement, like none of my deputies can wear their uniform and be engaged in politics. That's a rule that we have in law enforcement. And, for instance, even to make that a little bit bigger, a police chief appointed as a police chief is a nonpartisan position, and he's appointed by other people. He cannot wear his or her uniform for anything political. But according to the people that enforce the rules, the FPPC, the Fair Political Practices Act, those investigators have told me that because of my unique position of being an elected sheriff, there's only one of me. They put me into office, and that election process of becoming the sheriff that becomes really my persona. And I'm the sheriff 365 days a year, all day long, 24/7. And part of being the sheriff is I wear a uniform. And so that uniform is mine as the sheriff, and that makes it okay for me to wear during political purposes, because I'm politically a political person anyway, and because of the nature of the elections. The only thing that I really shouldn't do, and it's there might not be anything wrong, it's just maybe the appearance of wrong or how people feel, but I would never go, like door knocking through neighborhoods and ask for support for something like that, because approaching a door in uniform, people may feel obligated, like they have to answer the door and talk to me. So they're kind of being coerced into something. And then I would never ask for campaign money while I was in uniform because of the same reason, that people would feel like they were being coerced or somehow afraid of, the law or something, and they had to give. So those are the only two exceptions that I would not wear a uniform in. But any other, talking about politics or whatever it is that I'm doing, politics and my uniform are fair game.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for clarifying that, because I know a lot of people, they think uniform can't be associated with politics, but thank you so much. Now, I think just taking a step back real quick before we get into more of our questions that we have, just let us know why, first off, what made you want to become an officer, so become a sheriff, and then why did you make that leap to want to now pursue going for governor?
Yeah, so the becoming a sheriff, I don't know. I think there was an interest in law enforcement that was piqued when I was younger, and sometimes I look back and it's like I think this was maybe a little bit more subliminal, and it was inside my head, but it wasn't something that I was pursuing. So as I was growing up, I was very athletic, and I was very gifted at baseball. And in the area that I grew up, the part of the state that I grew up, I was very well known, even at a young age. And I was 16 years old, and I was a typical 16-year-old back then. I didn't get arrested, and I didn't break the law per se. But I was a typical high school 16-year-old boy. And one time my friends and I were out on a weekend, and we got pulled over, and we had alcohol in the car. And I was 16 years old. Obviously, you can't have alcohol at 16 years old. And it was a highway patrolman in Utah. And he pulled us back one at a time and gave us tickets. And I was the last one. And so he pulled me back, and he set me down in his car while he was writing the ticket. And he really, he knew who I was, and he basically said everything that my dad had always told me, and it was more impactful coming from someone else. And he basically told me that I was at a crossroads of my life, and I could either follow the path that my friends were going to go, or I could continue on this path of baseball and make something of myself. And who knows where that would lead. And the decision was only mine. It couldn't be my friends. It couldn't be my parents. It had to be me. And he basically said, if this is going to be your path, out drinking on weekends and hanging out and doing things that you shouldn't be doing, you're not going to have your baseball career that you want. And your life's going to be just like most other people around here. You'll just be in and out of trouble and those types of things. Mm-hmm. And so when I got back with my friends, they were talking crap on the cop because he pulled us over and because he gave us tickets, and he could have given us a warning. And I just remember being really quiet, and I was really embarrassed that from what he said, really. And so I, of course, had to tell my parents. Funny thing about being from a small town is by the time I told my parents the next day, my dad already knew. And so it really was a turning point for me, because as I went on in the years to go, and I really did have a great baseball career, but looking back and seeing what happened to some of my friends, he was right. Mm-hmm. And that how he talked to me, instead of just being mad at me or giving me a ticket, he didn't have to say anything. He could have just given me that ticket and gone on his way. But it did affect me. So I think that is what drew me into the law enforcement realm, because when I came to California, I was looking at construction. I was looking at, I worked several different jobs, sales, and then in the construction realm. But the opportunity for a law enforcement career came up, and this going to the academy, and I had a friend in that he was just saying how great it was, and so I did it. And I'm telling you, it was natural for me. It was, once I got into the academy, day one of the academy, I knew it was like, man, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is awesome. And the funny thing, relating it back to that highway patrolman, throughout my career, I pay special attention to kids, to either underage kids or young kids in their early 20s, whatever the case may be. And I try and do exactly to them what he did to me. And there is, you know, a little bit of a sad part to this story is once I became, it was probably about 15 years ago maybe, I was really very successful in law enforcement. And looking back, it was man, that guy changed my life. And I went looking for him. And when I finally found out, I remembered his name. And when I finally got around to, you know, inquiring, where are you, and all of that stuff, he had died the year before. Oh. And I really just wanted to tell him thanks and that it worked. And so I know that in my career, I know I have influenced thousands of kids. And I'm hoping that one day somebody is able to say that to me, that, hey, that how you talked to me or what you did for me, you made a difference in my life. And I'm sure they are. And I don't need that. But because he was able to do that for me, that really is what drove my law enforcement career, is wanting to make a difference for someone else. He took how he acted towards me. He truly did care about me as a person. And that's really been my law enforcement career. I've always cared about, you know, the people that I was arresting or the people that I was dealing with or pulling over or giving tickets to. And even if they were victims, no matter what it is, or even employees, my subordinates, I always carried what he did for me and how he influenced my life. And I try and do that with everyone else. I look at helping other people really more so than, you know, doing something for myself. So coming up to the sheriff, running for sheriff, and why I wanted to do that, it was really just wanting to make it better. And there was no other way to do that than I had to be the sheriff. I couldn't make our employees' lives better, and I couldn't make the residents of Riverside County's lives better if I wasn't the sheriff. So it was almost like a necessity. You have to do that if you're going to make a difference. And then really what I'm seeing today with California and the issues that I deal with our lawmakers in California, I've realized that I'm pretty much tapped out in Riverside County of making our county better when it comes to public safety, because the restrictions placed on me now and the limitations placed on me now are being placed on me by legislatures in California and the policies of our governor. And so if I want to change that, if I want to make things better for California, there's only one position that can do that as a whole. And when I saw some of the names and the faces of the people that have already said that they're going to run, and they announced, you know, some of them 2 years ago, I realized that it's the same people that I've been dealing with over the last 6 years or even 10 years, 12 years, the same names, the same faces of these government leaders, these party leaders. They're the same ones that put us in this position in the first place. They're the ones that made these laws. They're the ones that passed these regulations and enforce these regulations. And I realized that nothing's going to change if somebody doesn't take over that spot. And knowing that, especially on the Republican side, Republicans tend to not want to run. They don't believe it's possible in California. And I realized, well, somebody has to do it, and why not me? And with this whole shift in my election cycle from 2026 to 2028, it made it possible. So everything just fell into place. And now I'm just at a point where not only by winning this election can I make things better for California in public safety, there are so many other issues that are going wrong for us here in this state that really needs a directions change, and I'll be able to do that too.
Wonderful. Yeah, no, thank you so much for giving us that story and that back history. I think that's amazing to see that one man, you know, the one who pulled you over, just changing your life around and then having that impact. So that's just amazing to see. Tara, did you want to start out?
Yes. So, okay, Gen Z is as young as 12, as old as 26. So we have a lot of, you know, many people in their mid-20s are a part of Gen Z. So I'm curious to know what would your 25-year-old self think of 2025 you running for governor?
Wow, that's an amazing question. I think there's a funny story that goes back to that. When I was 25, I was 26 when I started. So 25, I was thinking about going to the academy. And actually, I was in the academy at 25. So I would have never have thought of being the sheriff back then. I remember the sheriff of San Bernardino just being this, it's like, oh my gosh, that's the sheriff. And it's like this celebrity that's in the building or when we saw him. So I don't know if I would have thought about being the governor back then, but early on in my career, at 6 months in my career, I had to have an evaluation, and I was very mature. Even the people around me, my friends, told me I was very mature for my age. And during this evaluation, my supervisor asked me, what are your goals in law enforcement? And I said, well, I want to get off probation. And she laughed and she's like, that's not a goal. Everybody gets off probation. You have to have goals. And I said, well, I want to go to patrol. And she's like, that's not a goal either. That's a gimme. You're going to go to patrol. She's like, you got to come up with career goals. And I truly couldn't think of anything. So I said, well, I guess I want to be the sheriff. And I didn't really. It was just I couldn't think of a goal. And so it was like, well, I might as well think high. And this funny story is she put that in my evaluation. And that has followed me for my entire career because that's not something a deputy talks about, is about being the sheriff. So I was teased quite a bit that, here comes the sheriff, as a brand new deputy on patrol. So it was an interesting time. But I think my personality is still the same. I definitely didn't think about it. I'm hoping that my 25-year-old, how I behaved as a 25-year-old truly is what has enabled me to become the sheriff. Because if I would have been any different type of a deputy, I wouldn't have even had the opportunity to have this position.
And how did you behave as a 25-year-old deputy?
I was very mature. And so I had a family. Young deputies were going out drinking on weekends and going to clubs and doing those things that young mid-20s single people did. And I was married with children. And that just didn't, I think I got that out of me in college. And a lot of people didn't. So
what were you doing on a Saturday night?
What's that?
What were you doing on a Saturday night at 25?
I was watching my kids. I had 2 kids. At 25, I would have had a newborn and a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old and a newborn. So my life was full. It was. I had plenty to keep me busy. I didn't want babysitters when I came home from work. For weekends, I had babysitters while I worked. So on weekends, it was about my kids and yard work and housework and trying to be an adult.
Oh, yeah, no, go on.
I was very proactive. I was extremely hard worker. And I was very, very ethical and honest. And not to say that everybody isn't, but I was almost overboard. There's right and wrong and there's no in between. And I think that's just how I was raised. And that treated me very, very well of treating people fair and really the reputation I got from my peers. So when as my career progressed, I had that reputation of always doing the right thing. So when somebody would learn of somebody doing something wrong, if they didn't have the strength to confront them or to turn them in, they would tell me. Knowing that I don't let things go, I would make sure I brought that up. So it was a little bit different than most people, I think.
So did you find fulfillment in just spending time with your kids and your family on a Saturday night after work?
I did. I will tell you that when I go home from work, I'm not a cop. And that's another thing that differentiates me from a lot of my friends that are cops, is being a law enforcement officer became their identity. And it was, to me, it's just a job. I do it to the absolute best of my ability. But my favorite part of life is I'm a husband and I'm a dad. And that's really what I want to be. I want to be the best of both of those things that I could be. And my job takes me to my day job to make money to provide for my family. So I never brought work home with me. There were a lot of my friends, even later on in life, that I had known for 10, 12 years that had no idea I was even a cop. Some of my friends believed I was in construction because I always did my own yard work. I always built my own things at my house, and they assumed I was in construction.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty impressive. One more question before I hand it off to Ellie, and it's just that what do you think is more chaotic, chasing criminals in Riverside or managing Sacramento politics?
Oh boy, that's hands down more chaotic is politicians in Sacramento, and I'll tell you the reason why is whether there's a criminal element, and there's norms in the criminal world, and you expect them to be criminals. They behave a certain way, they talk a certain way, they act a certain way, and they have that there's something in them where they just victimize people, and it's okay to victimize others for their own benefit. But there are still rules. They try not to get caught, but they know that I'm trying to catch them. And when they get caught, it's just over and it's acceptable. But dealing with Sacramento and politicians, they lie more than criminals. I can tell you that I would not say that criminals are dishonest. When we catch them, they pretty much usually always tell the truth. And they may deny it up front, but eventually their conscience gets to them and they tell the truth. That doesn't happen in Sacramento. They lie through their teeth. Sometimes to some of them, their existence is nothing but a lie. They have to lie every day to cover the lie that they told yesterday. And some of the bills that they pass that are just so horrifically bad for Californians that they have to lie about them. They're dishonest with the news reporters that ask questions about them, or even as they're arguing that bill in front of their peers trying to get a yes vote, they're just not honest. And so in my world, that's what I deal with is honesty. It's transparency, it's honesty, and everything like that. So when I have to confront them or when I have to have conversations with them, I like dealing with people that actually care about others. And it's obvious to me sometimes that the politicians have their own personal, private, or maybe sometimes it is political, but that agenda that overrides their actual care for the people that they represent, that they should be representing.
Yeah. That's so true. Now, kind of since we're on this topic of politicians, I just wanted to know from you, how will people like us know that you won't become one of those politicians that you're talking about in Sacramento?
So that's a great question, because I think what we sometimes, especially for politicians, we've become accustomed to just expecting them to be dishonest, expecting them to promise something and never deliver. Mm-hmm. And the one thing about me, though, is I've been doing this public service career for 32 years, and I've been the sheriff now since 2018. So everything that I have said I was going to do in both of my elections, I've already done and more. I basically have a proven track record of honesty and doing what I've said I'm going to do that no one else is going to have. No one else does have that. And I think it's such a combination of life that took me to here. It was how I was raised. My dad and my grandparents, I was raised different than most, I guess. And it was that handshake and looking someone in the eye and you said something, your word is everything, and you don't go back on your word. And I raised my kids the same way. So some of the big fear for me, and it's not a fear, but it's how I think about things, is I will not do any of those things, because the last thing I ever want is, number one, to embarrass my dad, and number two, I don't want my kids to ever look at me and say I was a hypocrite. I don't want me to do something that they say, man, you told us we could never do that, or you told us we should always tell the truth, and we should always do what we say. And so it's just a personal thing for me but it's also something that you can look back on my career, and especially as a politician, as an elected politician, there truly isn't anything my record is really irrefutable. And I think that's really what I'm finding out is what makes me scary, I think, to the other politicians, because it's easy to attack people when they've done so many things wrong. And for me, they already know from my elections, there really isn't there's nothing that can really say negative about me.
Yeah. Well, that's great. You know what? I think that it's been a long time since we've had somebody in Sacramento that, you can take them for their word, because, there's something always there that they go back on.
Right. I've said that. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but along those lines, I've said this for a couple of years now. I think that we are at a point in California where Californians are starving for someone to believe in. They want to believe someone. They want to believe that someone is actually going to care about them and more than themselves. And I think that's where I fit in. And I think that's why I've been so appealing to people is they can look at me and say, man, I may not like what he says sometimes, but I can definitely trust what he's saying is the truth. And I know if he's saying he's going to do something, he's going to do it.
Yeah.
So imagine you get a truth serum and you can ask Gavin Newsom, one question. What would that question be? Gavin.
Wow. Honestly, just what's happening with him and what's going on with California right now, the question would be, I would ask him why his political ambitions and political agenda was more important than Californians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what his response would be?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he could answer.
That's how you question.
It would go back to what we were talking about earlier, and he would just lie his way out of it and say that he did. He does care about people, and it's just from someone that works in the public sector that actually has to do things for people on a daily basis. I can tell you that he is personally, it is his personal political agenda and then his party agenda that he pushes at all costs, and it doesn't matter who's affected by it. And so I don't know how he would answer that. He certainly wouldn't be able to.
Right. Yeah, and you know what? Some of the people that he's let down, because he's let down all of Californians, and one of those is currently our generation, who are currently going to inherit the state of this how the state is going to be.
Yeah.
And many of us are currently going into the workforce, already in the workforce. I mean, we just talked about it earlier. The oldest is probably around 26, 25. So looking at that, I know that a lot of jobs are currently out of California. Businesses are moving.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know what your solution would be to just bring back jobs to California so that our generation will have a chance and a shot at what we would call an American dream or the Californian dream.
Yeah. So, and that's a great thing to look at, because the American dream is one thing, but truly, I really do believe the California dream is bigger than the American dream. That is what brought me to California. I could have had the American dream. I was raised in Utah, but California brought me here because I wanted the California dream. And so you're right by saying it's both. And I have many of my friends. The majority of my friends are at either the close age of retirement or they've retired already, and they've all left the state. They've all sold their businesses. They've all closed their businesses. They've just retired from their job, and they've moved to states where it's cheaper to live. You don't have as many taxes. Cost of living is lower. Cost of fuel is lower, and there's not as many government regulations. So common sense and reason would tell you that our California government is pushing our residents away. The high cost of living, the high cost of homes, the unbelievable high cost of taxes, and the government regulations that consume our daily lives. That is why people are leaving. So as governor, those have to be removed. taxes, the high taxes must be removed. The regulations have to be removed in order to get those businesses back. You look at the businesses that we're losing are major, not only income tax generating businesses, those are jobs for all of our people in California. So not only did those big companies leave, they took all of those jobs with them. And those people we either have to move with them and move to another state to get that job, or it's just people from the other states that are filling those positions. So we have to do everything we can to bring those businesses back. So your generation actually has jobs to go to. The Tesla corporations, all of the tech corporations that have all left, we have to bring them back. I just saw today that Phillips 66, the gas, that company, they're closing shop and they're moving. They can't be here anymore. That's going to not only be the jobs and the fuel, but it's going to cause our gas prices to go even higher than what they already are. And that's going to be more of a burden on younger generation that as you're entering into the workforce, that you still have to pay the same cost of living to get to your job and all of those things. So the taxes on fuel, the regulations on fuel that cause our fuel to be higher, the regulations on food that cause everything in California, our food, our anything that you buy is so heavily regulated in California. That's why it costs more here. And all of those regulations are not laws. They are government-imposed regulations that can be changed with the stroke of a pen. Our current governor could change them if he wanted today. And that's just not part of their agenda. That would be part of mine. I know that in order to bring these businesses back, we have to reduce their taxes. We have to reduce the cost of living. We have to reduce the regulations. So when they come back, their businesses can flourish, which means more Californians have a place to go work in the first place. And then as all of that happens, everything else just comes down on its own.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, you know what? Something that goes hand in hand with jobs is the education that's required behind it. And we have the K through 12 system here in California is terrible. I mean, I think we're ranked 37th among all of our other states. And that's with over $100 billion going to funding. And that was under Proposition 98. Now, with that much money going to it, and we're ranked how low among other states, that's very alarming because we're not getting quality education that we need to flourish and then get those jobs that require all those skills. So I want to know, what would your plan be to help fix this education system?
Yeah, our education system has to be completely revamped. And you're absolutely right. I think you were being generous to California. I think we're in the 40s somewhere. I don't think we're in the 30s. I think we're down to like the last handful toward the bottom, but yet we spend the most per capita per student. And an interesting thing about that cost is more than 50%, or roughly around 50% of the cost of the money that goes to education goes above the principal level. So that means it's not going to our teachers. It's not going to have more teachers with smaller classrooms to provide a better education environment for students. It's not making sure that we have enough teachers to teach our students, or that we're paying our teachers enough to even want to go into that line of work. And so the cost of our education system is in the administrative bureaucracy realm. And those obviously have to be eliminated. And when you look at other states that have a much better education system, the above principal level, there aren't very many of them. The administrative, like for instance, in your school system, so your district, the district office might only have like 4 or 5 high schools in it, and then middle schools and things like that. And in other states, they may have 30 high schools, 40 high schools, 50 high schools. But here we're like, California is 30 times more administratively large than, say, Florida. And so we absolutely have to eliminate that really it's just government waste. And whatever positions they're holding, they can be teachers. I mean, our kids need teachers. And we need schools. We have school systems that schools are just old and they haven't been built out for years. And it's not from a lack of money. It's just mismanagement of money. And then part of the education system, from my perspective, and mind you, this is my perspective from sending 4 kids through school. I think even for me, looking at my education, the classes that I was required to take that are no longer required, that is what made me successful. The economics classes, the civics classes, the how government works classes, and all of those things, even history that were not required that we aren't required anymore. And one of the things that I will have to say, and just because I have so many friends that are teachers, that part of the problem that they have in their class is it's not a learning environment for students because of 1 or 2 kids that are constantly disrupting the class, that we can no longer do anything with them. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say we have to segregate them and move them, but we do. And if they're going to choose to make our school environments not conducive to learning, then back in the day, even when my kids were growing up, there were alternative schools where the kids that had discipline problems, that were constantly in trouble, constantly disrupting the other kids, even bullying the other kids, they had to go to school a different place, because we can't sacrifice 99% of the kids for 1% of them. Right. And I truly do feel bad for your generation, because I feel like it was us that failed you. It was my generation that, and maybe a little bit younger than me, that truly did fail your generation. But I don't want to end with that, because I want to tell you that I have a unique perspective of your generation and the one that my kids are really in, right above you. Mm-hmm. And I have that because of not only friends that are employing you, but because I'm employing you. So we hire from 18. So you can work in our jails right out of high school, 18 years old. A deputy, you have to be 21. So what we are noticing, and what I am noticing in your generation of kids coming in, and I don't really know if it happened because of the whole COVID thing or right before that, or what you all learned from looking at your parents or from your surroundings, but I can tell you, and I'm not just saying this is you, this is other employers that are saying the same thing. Your generation is going to be the one that makes the difference, because we see a generation that not only is wanting to make a difference, but you're harder workers without a reason. You're harder workers because you want to work harder, not because we're dangling something in front of you or you were forced to do it. There's something within you that you want that American dream. You want, yes. I want to work hard and I want to be rewarded for my hard work. Something in all of you, in your generation, that arrived again, where I think in my kids, like I struggled sometimes with my kids, and it was different than some of their friends, because their friends were they were in the generation that everybody gets a trophy and there can be no hard feelings, and you can't get in trouble for anything. And I think I don't want to say it made them soft, but it made them a little bit entitled. And your generation, what we are noticing is there is no entitlement anymore. It's, I want to work hard, and how am I going to make myself better? And I'm truly happy that it's turning out this way. And I think it's going to affect politics too.
That's wonderful. No, it's great to hear from, older people who are looking down on our generation and what they think, because a lot of the times they kind of are like, these crazy kids. But no, it's great to see that my generation is stepping up to the plate and really working hard. And that's the good thing that I've seen. I've seen both sides to my generation, but I'm glad to see that the good side is shining through, really. Well, before I pass it over to Tara, but I wanted to know, so personally, I come from a different type of homeschool or schooling system, I guess. I was homeschooled for most of my life. And so I just wanted to know, what was your perspective on school choice, and would you support that?
I certainly would. So in my world, at the time when my kids were in school and they were coming up in elementary school, I was supervising school resource officers. So I knew what was happening in schools, and I knew where the administration, where their mentality was going. And my wife and I made a choice early on that we would send our kids to private school, and if we had to work 5 jobs, we would make sure that we avoided the public school system. And we had several friends that did the same. We had several friends that homeschooled, and it was all for the same thing. It was the education wasn't being provided in the public school. There was no choice of, you were forced to go to school, and you had no control over your teachers, your kids' teachers, or anything like that. And so now, as an adult and growing up through this, and then getting into a position where I'm going to be able to make a difference, sometimes you have to make drastic changes. And I am all for school choice, and I am all for the whole voucher system where, and that will be for homeschooling too. We are spending a lot of money on our kids, and if it happens to be a homeschool mom that can't work or a homeschool dad because they're choosing to educate their kids, well, they shouldn't have to do it at their own expense. And if that cost per student that is the state's responsibility, a parent should be able to choose where that money goes. They shouldn't be forced to be, pigeonholed into a place where they don't believe their kids are getting a good education. And by doing that, it forces those other school districts to have to do the right thing. They're going to have to appeal to parents to make them want their kids to go to that school. So I think the voucher system, the school choice system is great, but it will also apply to homeschool.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, I know a lot of people, it's tough. Homeschooling, it costs a lot of money because you're taking on that responsibility that's really the state's, and can cost a pretty penny, but all because the parents really want their child to have a quality education and not subject to, what's around them. So that's good to hear. Tara?
Well, this is my last serious question, and then we're going to jump to some fun stuff.
I've got a couple ones.
After you're done. And then we have been getting some comments, so we're just going to do that at the end, if that's all right with you. We have some questions from the comments. Okay, great. So would you publicly debate someone who fundamentally distrusts you, and would you allow us to live stream it? Depending, I guess now you're scaring me. So my answer would probably be yes, because I've never been afraid to debate anyone, because I am truly who you see, and I am what you see. And so most of my opinions, I don't have an opinion unless I've learned it or I'm pretty confident that I'm right. So, and I'm not afraid to say I'm wrong, or I'm not afraid to say I don't know something. So debating someone, I'm good. So I will tell you that you might be hard pressed to find somebody that would want to debate me, because I will tell you this, I am known in the law enforcement world for my interview skills. And part of interview skills are, I remember everything you're saying. So it's impossible to lie to me, because you can't carry on an opinion, but because I'm going to say, hey, wait a minute, 15 minutes ago you said this, and that contradicts what you're saying now. Mm-hmm. And I remember my wife sometimes, when we'd be trying to get information out of the kids, and she'd remind me, she's like, stop interviewing the kids, or don't interview me. So part of debating is listening to what other people are saying, and then being able to articulate your opinion. But one of the things, especially with our governor, I won't let him get by with lying, and other people have let him get by with the dishonesty. So it would be interesting. So I'm going to tell you, yes, I would, but you're scaring me just because it's like you already have somebody in mind.
No. Well, you know what? Thank you so much for your honesty with that. But no, seriously, I appreciate, public speaking skills and being able to do interviews. I'm sure that your law enforcement career has definitely helped you with that, especially interviewing people. You got to make sure you're sharp on that. So that's good. Now, so another thing that's affecting Gen Z right now is, what I would have to say is the mental health crisis. there's that's been growing, and along with that, that I think is really tied to it as well has been the use of drugs and as well as fentanyl. And that's one of the questions that we did see come in as well. So I just wanted to know how you would address that and what resources or support that you would provide to people who are dealing with that.
Yeah, I think there has to be a lot more truthful education in the education realm, and particularly since you brought it up around the drugs.
Right.
Because there is so much scientific evidence of the effects of drugs and alcohol on mental health. And it doesn't matter if it's alcohol, marijuana, pills, anything like that. It seriously is a mental health catalyst. And so the unfortunate part about California is we have so made drugs mainstream, and we've pretty almost legalized the use of drugs, particularly marijuana, that a lot of people are getting into that. And then there's a huge study in Colorado because that's where they did it first. And within the first 5 years, they realized that all the money that they thought they were going to be making in tax revenue was being spent in the school system on mental health. And they correlated it to the day that they made marijuana, legal. So it's not all drugs. There's many issues that influence our mental health. And we certainly are seeing your generation, and it's not just yours, it's the one before you. There is a lot of it. There's medical science that say it could be the things that we're eating, it's the drugs that we're taking that are affecting our brain's ability to remain in homeostasis, that we're going out of balance. So there are so many issues that we have to address to get there. But for me, we have to, and especially in my line of work. So I've got 4,400 employees, and the majority of them now are young. And we have had to completely alter how we look at mental health. Mental health for me, as I was growing up, it was a negative stigma. There's a negative stigma with mental health. You don't talk about your mental health status. You just get over it. And what that did was, as I was a new deputy, the cops that were getting ready to retire, they were all chain smokers. They were all alcoholics. They were all on their fourth and fifth marriages, and their lives were in shambles. And then for me, one of the things that I think it may have benefited me coming through my career is through college, I was always fascinated about psychology. So my psychology classes were my favorite classes. So moving fast forward, it's you, and then becoming a parent and having to figure out how to raise my kids, 4 different kids that really thought all different. And I had to alter the way I behaved, because my dad, he just threatened me and said, go do this, and you're going to do this is how it is, and it's because. And when I would say why, my dad would say because, and that was the good enough answer. Because was a real answer. Yep. And we noticed, my wife and I noticed with our kids, that because was no longer a real answer. We had to actually explain things to them. But as soon as we explained it, then they were good with it. Then they did what I wanted. But it was just a different approach. And then in the work that we do, we deal with a lot of trauma. And so deputies are constantly coming into traumatic situations with death, with child crimes and sex crimes and things like that. That's emotionally taxing on us. And we have had to completely change. Since I became sheriff, we have completely changed how we approach the mental health aspect. We have a complete unit that is staffed by supervisors and regular line employees that deal with nothing but peer support and mental health. And we have, it seems like a lot of money, but $500,000, $750,000 is what we dedicate to the mental health of our employees and their families at no question. This is offered to you. We encourage you to take it. We encourage you to take your kids, your wife, whatever the case may be. And it's the cost of maybe like 3 or 4 deputies overall in a 4,400 member department. But the benefit that they are getting from that, and knowing that we are not holding it against them. There's no negative stigma that comes with needing to work through your problems and making sure that you're okay mentally, because mentally, if you're not healthy mentally, you're not going to be healthy physically.
Right.
And they both go hand in hand. Sometimes, even if you're not physically healthy, that takes your mental health down. And so we have to start looking at it all together, but realizing that we truly do have a mental health problem. And rather than just ignoring it and hoping it goes away or that people can fix themselves, we have to start addressing it and come up with solutions of how we're going to make it better.
Yeah, I think you have a very interesting perspective, especially since you just said, being an officer, you have to deal with a lot of trauma cases. So that, I think, is very interesting, especially considering, other candidates that you're running against. You have a very interesting perspective when it comes to that. So thank you so much for sharing. Another thing that I think that a lot of Gen Zers are struggling with, and I think this is not even Gen Zers, I think it's millennials. I think it's pretty much a lot of people who are currently trying to find a house, right? We've had that problem for a while, and we touched on this a little bit earlier about the affordable housing and things like that. So I just wanted to know what your, ways to address this problem would be.
So I have very good friends that are home builders. Some of them are individual homes, custom homes, and some of them are mass homes like housing developments. And all of them say the same thing. The reason why homes are so expensive is because of the government regulation that is placed on the process of even building a home. So the environmental regulations, the red tape within county and cities that causes the time of building a home. So, and when I say time of building, I will tell you that when I was looking at my first home, we would go to a development place, or, you look at, if you're going to buy a piece of land and build a home, it was 4 to 6 months to build a home. And now you're talking 2 and 3 years. And those are all regulations. Those are government imposed regulations. And without trying to get too deep into it, what happens is that builder has to buy the property and then build the home. Well, they don't do that with cash. They do it with a loan. And so they're taking out a loan for this massive development. Well, if this massive development takes 3 years, that's 3 years that they're paying on that loan that they aren't getting anything from. So all of those costs of dragging out that process for 2 and 3 years, they're not going to eat that cost. They have to pass that cost on to the consumer, which is us trying to buy a home.
Right.
And that is the sole reason why California leads the country in the price of homes. It's regulation. It's government imposed regulations that have caused the process to take so long that cost has to be passed on to us. And as the governor, I will remove them. We will make it conducive for people to build homes. We will make it okay for them to build housing communities and develop these communities at a reasonable price. I truly, for you, and even my kids are in the same boat, I don't see how they're going to afford a home.
Right.
And that American dream, that is part of the American dream, is growing up and a successful job or career and owning a home and paying it off before you retire and retire living happily ever after. And when that big part of that dream, that home ownership, is taken away from you, that's a blow. And unfortunately for California, that's what we're finding is if you want to own a home and you want to work hard, you can go to another state that doesn't have these regulations, that housing is still affordable. And then it causes more of a downfall of California. We're losing our workers.
Yep.
And so by taking away the cost of building that home, that cost is not passed on to you, the buyer. And it seems like it seems like it can't be true because it's too easy. And for all of the builders, they all know it's too easy. They know what the simple solution is. And for me, looking at it and seeing, listening to what's been told to me and seeing how it happens and knowing how the price of homes has gone up so crazy in my lifetime, I know that's what it is. And it's sad that it's our government that's done it to us in that need for revenue. Instead of stopping the spending, the wasteful spending at government, they just keep coming up with different ways to get more. And the cost of a home is a good way for the government to get money. And honestly, that has to be taken away.
Yep, it does. Yeah. You know what? It's so interesting to see that a lot of these problems, like they all kind of like they create this domino effect and affect other things. So, for example, you were just talking about how the houses, people have to go out of state now to buy a house and live that American dream, and then our jobs are being taken away. So it's just a crazy just cycle that happens. But something that also happened, I think it's crazy, it's just this year that happened, was the Altadena and the Pacific Palisades fires. That was an entire big fiasco and event. It's very interesting to see our politicians who were saying that we were unprepared for it, even though we know this happens all the time here in California. We have fires all the time because of the summer, because of the heat. So I just wanted to know, what would you do differently if you were governor, and how would you address this problem so we wouldn't have this happen again?
It's interesting because this wasn't something that just happened this year. You are absolutely right. We have in California called fire season. Mm-hmm. We know it happens every single year. And we also have wind season. We know the winds happen every single year. The fires happen every single year. And what we have noticed in the last decade for sure, every year the fires get bigger and bigger and bigger and more destructive. It's not a secret why. The reason why the fires are they're so much bigger and they're so much more out of control is because they have more fuel. Because the fire departments have been prevented by our government, those regulations that have to be removed, they have been prevented from clearing out areas from dead brush, old growth, not the entire forest, just buffers around cities. So you only have to, maybe like 300 feet or 500 feet from the nearest home. You have to make sure, not bare, you have to make sure that the undergrowth is gone. And the fire department all knows this. The fire department has actually been, CAL FIRE and city fires have been saying this for decades, that they have to get control of this, but it's the government that will not let it happen. And so those regulations on our fire crews, from the mitigation efforts of cleaning out areas away from residential areas, so when that fire comes, it can't get close or it can't get hot enough to actually take out a city like we just witnessed. Everyone knew it was going to happen. 2 years ago, the insurance companies told the state of California that cities were going to burn down because of this mismanagement. And they told them, we are no longer going to be able to insure homes here if you don't change. And our government didn't change. So our insurance companies canceled policies. And unfortunately, it happened for thousands right before this fire. Right. And it's just more proof that it was government that allowed this to happen, not the fire. Government didn't cause the fire and it didn't cause the wind, but we saw complete failures of government with a lack of water because of regulations in that reservoir and red tape to fix a stupid tarp that caused that reservoir to be empty, and the clearing of vegetation from around homes. Everything could have been mitigated to where that fire wouldn't have been so disastrous.
Right. Yeah, so many things that just could have helped and prevented this to have been so big.
And, I'll just chime in here, too. Mm-hmm. I met a woman the other day who said she was a renter, and, the fires happened, and in Altadena, that's where she lived, and she said in one night, if it was a normal day, and then in one night she lost everything. She just lost everything, and she's a renter, so she doesn't even get any. It's like she said, I'm 68 years old and I'm walking away with literally nothing, and I just keep asking God, why did this happen to me? And I think that is just an accurate example of the pain and suffering that people are experiencing right now in LA. And the LA fires are not in the news cycle anymore. So I think a big question on my mind, and I think everybody's mind, is like, it happened. What now? What's the government's efforts going to be now? What's the rebuild? What's next? And if you'd like, you can speak on that. But
I will speak on that, and I it's to all of the people listening, and it's especially of voting age and our people out there that vote. We've been doing the same thing over and over and over again with the same people over and over and over again, and we've gotten the same result over and over and over again. We have to start paying more attention. We have to start becoming more involved. We have to start making sure that we vote, and we make wise choices when we vote, and we don't vote for silly reasons like the name sounded better, or their hair was a better color than the other person. And unfortunately, those are how some people pick who they're going to choose. And our government truly has failed us in California, and I feel like there certainly is a rising up of frustration and a change in the weather, if you will, that people are starting to become frustrated, and they are starting to wonder how this could have happened. And I think one of you mentioned it in the very beginning of when you were talking about the elections and the off cycles. The reality of California, how our government is set up, is you can change almost half of our state government every 2 years. And if you just make a conscious decision, because we have elections for Assembly and Senate every 2 years. The Assembly has to run every 2 years. Half of them run every 2 years. And then the Senate is every 2 years for 6, and they're just different rules. But they're all up for election roughly at the same time. And we can make a big difference. And we can change the direction of where our government is going to care more about the actual lives in California. I mean, that you saying that, breaks my heart that woman, her life is over almost, and she has nothing to show for it. She has nothing, nowhere to go, no clothes, no nothing. And at that age, how is no one caring about that woman? I guarantee you that woman worked her entire life and paid taxes her entire life. How is the state just hoping now that we forget and move into a new news cycle with whatever else comes up and makes us forget about the disaster for 16,000 families that their lives are forever altered? And we have to start making better choices in our government to make these different decisions, to change these rules, to make it to where this can never happen again. We can't stop the fire. So what are we going to do to mitigate its intensity? And if we keep electing the same people, that we're going to get the same outcomes.
Right. Yeah. I think that one of the things that you mentioned, which was crazy, is how people vote based on how a candidate sounds, their name. I've literally met people, I've gone out and interviewed people before, asking if they voted and how they vote, and it's just by their name. And they were laughing about it, but it's so crazy that people actually do that, because we have to be so informed. These are they could have been voted for the worst person in the world because their name sounded cool. But thank you for bringing up that midterms are very important. I mean, they're so important, and a lot of people forget them. But let's move into our funny questions that we have.
Okay, I'm kind of bummed out right now, but okay.
That's why we have to do these. I'm a little worried about what these are going to be. So
No, don't worry. Okay, first question. Okay, this is from one of my friends, and she's asking, does pineapple belong on pizza?
Absolutely not.
I agree. I so agree. It's okay, Tara. It's okay. You can have...
I'm sorry. It doesn't belong on my pizza, but it might belong on yours.
You know what? I think the Italians would agree that it does not belong on pizza.
That's exactly right.
Let's be honest here, Tara.
I like the Hawaiians on this.
Okay. Did you have a funny one?
Yes. Pitch California like it's a Netflix movie trailer. And you're the main character. What's the title and what's the plot?
Well, it's funny because there's a lot of people that are coming up with T-shirts and stuff to sell for my campaign, and we've talked of something similar like this, but it would be California. Only the sheriff can save us now. And obviously, I'm the main character, and we have a very, very broken state, and that's the premise. The plot of the show is the sheriff riding into town and fixing it.
That's really cool. That sounds like something fun that they should jump on.
Should consider.
You know, talking about a broken state, there's one character that comes to mind that does this and goes into the city, and that's Batman. So if Batman was real, would you support him?
Wait, Batman's not real?
No. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you support Batman?
Do you support Batman?
Everyone has to support Batman. We all grew up with Batman, and Batman's a unique character though, because it's almost like along the vigilante side, but he does good and he fights crime, but it's behind a mask and nobody knows who his identity is and everything else. So it's a little unique there, but it's still someone fighting for what's right and fighting for good. So, I mean, even the premise of Batman, the little, shining the light in the sky and everything else, it was the police commissioner that did that. So I would definitely support Batman.
There you go. Did you have another one, Tara?
That was it.
Okay, I have a couple more. Okay. Okay. So hold on. Okay, let me write one. So living in California, we have a lot of Hispanics there. Okay, Tara and I are both Hispanic. We want to know, tacos or burritos?
Ooh, taco.
Which one do you like better? Taco? Really? Okay, what type of taco?
I like all tacos, but now I have to go back to where I told you earlier on how I eat.
Yes, that's right.
So my wife's Hispanic, and we could probably eat, well, tacos and burritos, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, we lived in Mexican restaurants, and until we changed the way we ate, and then we obviously didn't anymore. But probably, oh man, I guess I'm just a steak fan, so I'd have to say carne asada,
yes,
or even ground is fine. But I'm a taco fan. I could eat tacos all day long.
Amazing. What was your favorite Hispanic dish when you could eat anything?
Well, this isn't the Spanish Spanish dish, but chips and salsa. My wife and I would go through gallons of salsa and buckets of chips before they would bring our meals. But I don't have really probably a favorite food when I was going there. I would get something different all the time, but typically, I don't know. I mean, enchiladas and tacos and burritos, wet burritos.
Very good. Yeah, there's a lot of good food.
Chili rellenos once in a while if you're in the mood.
I love those.
No, so good, delicious. I have another question. Okay, do you have a favorite book?
I don't know if I have a favorite book. I enjoy reading. Unfortunately now, I don't find what I feel like I don't find enough time to read. And sometimes it's just a mood. I might be in the mood for a history book, or I may be in the mood for just something that is, complete fiction. Just take me somewhere else where it's not reality, and
right.
Something like that. But I don't know if I I don't know if I have a favorite book.
Yeah. No.
I'll give you. I'll tell. I don't know why this popped into my head. I don't know why this popped into my head. Probably because of my kids and me too. But from my mom. But there's this little book, and it's "Are You My Mother?"
Oh,
And the whole thing is just about this. A little duckling going around saying, "Are you my mother? Are you my mother?" to all these different animals. But it was, according to my mom, that was my favorite book.
Aww.
I know it was my kids' favorite book because they bring it up all the time. Probably because that's all we read to them. But that just popped into my head. So I'm going to say, "Are You My Mother?"
That's so sweet. No, I remember that book. I really loved that book too. It was a nice one.
It's so sweet.
I know. So sweet. Do you watch TV or movies more?
Lately, not at all. I watch the news. My wife and I like crime dramas, so we are probably addicted to like Dateline and 48 Hours and those types of things. And once in a while, if like I watched the first season of Yellowstone, but then I got bored, and so it's hit and miss.
Yeah, no, I'm actually watching the series that come before Yellowstone right now.
18 something, right?
Yes, yeah. I really love those. Those are so good.
Yeah.
Such good shows. I'm liking them right now, but yeah.
Are you all good on funny questions?
Yeah, did you have one more extra? No?
No.
Okay.
I'm still bummed out. No,
Tara.
No, I'm having a good time.
Okay.
Well, we want to jump into some of our comments. I mean, we had some.
Let's just do 2 of them because it is getting a little late.
Ooh.
So
here, well, how about 5? Is that okay?
No.
Like, Ellie, come on. You gotta let me vote on this a little bit. Well, let me just start off. So we have Evelyn Jones. She's helped. She's been a supporter of 180 Shift. She's a really great person, and she's very active in Los Angeles for the fentanyl crisis. And she's very. She works for the Trump administration, and I hope I'm not saying too much about her, but she's very active on the local fentanyl crisis and just tackling it. So her comments are, how is Sheriff planning to engage the youth in his campaign? That's 1. And 2, how can we stop the fentanyl and mental illness crisis in our state?
Yeah, so I'll take number 2 first. The fentanyl crisis was truly amplified by the open border. And in the law enforcement world, we watched as the fentanyl pills and the fentanyl powder was just being flooded into our country, and particularly Southern California in our area because of the proximity to the border and the freeway systems. The 15 and the 10 fuel the rest of the country. So they would smuggle it across the border here. This was the hub, and then it went into the rest of the country. But we've seen the disaster that fentanyl is causing. So number 1, President Trump has already done it. The border is secure. And we know from the law enforcement world that there is no one coming across the border anymore. Yeah. And so with that, those drugs, the even flow of drugs has been stopped or severely hampered. And now that the border is secure, we can even the government agencies, the DEA, the Border Patrol, and local law enforcement can concentrate more on identifying where the drugs are coming from and hopefully stop them from coming into the country. Another part of that is education. We did a massive social media and radio and television campaign about the dangers of fentanyl and how one pill kills. And you just to completely avoid something that you don't know what it is because it more than likely is fentanyl. And it really did work. We saw a drastic decrease in the steady rise of deaths that we were having here because of fentanyl. It plateaued and then took a major dip. And so it's plateauing off again. We would like to have it down to 0. But it's an education thing. It's convincing people to not try to take it because it's so addicting and so dangerous for that first attempt. But then the people that are addicted to it already, it's such an addictive drug, it's going to take them a lot of help to get off it. And we're going to have to put the resources toward their rehab. And it's, a lot of people look at it like it's, they're the drug addict, it's their fault, whatever the case may be. It's the wrong way to do it. I mean, I'm a cop, and I get that you should be arrested for doing illegal things, but I also think that we owe it to everyone as a human being to be able to provide you the most help that we can to get you off of drugs and back into society and productive again. Mm-hmm. So it's a major education effort, and it's a major monetary effort into the rehab part. And how am I going to engage the youth? I know that we are finding that our youth are more willing to be active in politics right now than the 25 to 45-year-olds. So it's my generation is willing to be active, and it's the teenagers, and they may not even be able to vote, but they're already active and want to help. So we're doing everything we can to engage our younger generation, your generation, into caring about politics, into being involved, to being curious about it, and then even how it all works. And fortunately for me, that I have the campaign, and it's a statewide campaign. So we're trying to recruit as young as we can and as many as we can to help with canvassing and education and all of those things that a campaign entails. And then it's going to get that desire or that drive for them as you all keep getting older to just want to make a difference and want to really be involved in that process. So I think we're at a great point right now, and we know that engaging our youth and getting them part of this campaign is going to be a major part, if not the part of our success.
We also have another comment as well. That actually, you were talking about the border earlier. Now, they're wondering, how do you feel about our current governor planning on making many cities and counties in California sanctuary?
Yeah, so I'm really at the forefront of this sanctuary state thing, and I'm as one of the people against it the most. And the reality is because we were lied to about it in the beginning, and we're suffering the consequences now. The sanctuary state laws only protect criminals. It does absolutely nothing to protect you as a California resident, as a California citizen, and it does nothing to protect our immigrant community that's here illegally. It only protects the people that are victimizing us by committing crimes. And those people that end up in jail or those people that end up in prison, that's what SB 54, Senate Bill 54, which is our sanctuary state law, that's what that was designed for, was to prevent criminals from prison and jails from being deported. And what that does is it forces the jails and the prisons to release those criminals back into society, back into our neighborhoods, and we're being victimized again. And so SB 54 has to go. We have to completely either abolish it and start over again or make some major drastic changes, because I get the argument that they came here illegally in the first place, but once they are in custody, once they have committed a crime and they've been arrested for the rapes, the robberies, the murders, even a DUI, someone told me that, a DUI is only a misdemeanor and you can't deport someone for just having a misdemeanor. And my answer to them was, I am fully aware of a person that was here illegally that got 3 DUIs. His third DUI was a DUI accident that killed one of my dispatchers. So we just allow people to break the law until someone dies? I mean, that my dispatcher would still be here today if that person would have been deported on that first time with that DUI. So I feel like if you, even though you came here illegally, and I'm not for that, but if you're here, I can kind of understand it if you're trying to make a better life for you and your family. But by victimizing us and committing crimes, you're no longer making a better life for you or your family. You're victimizing us, and so you've really vacated your option to be here. And we should be able to turn you over to ICE and deport you. So I know it's a complicated situation, and I know there's a lot of emotion that goes into it. But the actual, umbrella around sanctuary state, we have to take that. We have to get rid of that so we can start protecting the people in California.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. We're running out of time. Did you have one more thing?
Well, I mean, there are a few extra comments that if you want to, go check them out, we can check them out later.
Check them out later.
We do have to wrap up, unfortunately. But
I know.
This has been wonderful. I mean, we really appreciate you joining us, and just, it's really been great. And do you have any closing comments or?
For all of your generation, if you truly want to get involved in politics, you can definitely help out on my campaign. You can go to biancoforgovernor.com and sign up on the volunteer page. We will have someone contact you. There's many different areas where you can volunteer. We would be more than happy to welcome you into this as we take California back and make it better for all of us.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and hopefully we'll be able to jump in later on again. And I wish you best on your endeavor.
Thank you. It was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And there.